Hey there, welcome to the Story Bazaar. Tonight, we're traveling back in time. No, not to grand gladiatorial battles or epic speeches in marble halls, nothing that intense. Instead, we'll take a gentle stroll through ancient Rome as twilight creeps over the city. Because when night fell in Rome, a whole other side of life quietly began, one filled with hidden laughter, whispered secrets, bustling taverns, and dreams that echoed across centuries. The streets are still warm, the sky is turning violet, and 1,000 quiet stories wait to be found. So close your eyes if you like, and let the night begin in ancient Rome as the sun begins its lazy descent beyond the 7 hills. Imagine you're standing atop one of Rome's famous hills, perhaps the Capitoline Hill, where temples and statues bask in the final golden glow of the day. It's evening, and Rome's relentless daytime clamor fades into a gentle hum. The markets are closing, vendors shouting their last bargains into the dusk. The forums, so bustling just hours ago, empty quietly as senators and merchants shuffle toward home, their sandals softly scuffing against marble pavements. You look around, and the sprawling city seems to sigh with relief as evening blankets the chaos. Lanterns flicker into life, dotting the city streets and alleyways like tiny stars brought down to earth. Nighttime is falling, and it carries with it a unique charm, a quieter, calmer energy, yet full of secrets and unseen dramas. As you descend from the hill, you pass homes where rich Romans recline on soft couches, preparing for luxurious dinners. Oil lamps cast gentle, flickering shadows onto beautifully painted walls. Inside, servants bustle silently, bringing plates of olives, bread, honeyed wine, and delicacies imported from distant provinces. For Rome's elite, dinner cena wasn't just a meal. It was the heart of the evening, a moment of leisure, status, and indulgence. But let's step away from the elegance for just a moment. Because life wasn't all silk togas and exotic spices, far from it. As you wander deeper into the city, you pass through crowded streets lined with apartment blocks called insulae. Think of them as Rome's version of high-rise apartments, except without elevators, plumbing, or privacy. The air here smells of charcoal fires, hot oil, and the pungent tang of overcrowded living. You peer through open doorways and windows into dimly lit rooms, where families cluster around small, smoky hearths. Dinner here is simpler, often just bread, lentil stew, maybe a bit of salted fish if fortune smiles on you. Laughter and arguments drift into the street, mixing with the sounds of children chasing each other despite mothers calling them inside for the night. Nearby, street vendors remain busy, doling out snacks to those returning late from their day's labor. Warm bread, roasted nuts, spiced olives wrapped in cloth. Rome's streets at dusk weren't sleepy. They buzzed softly, like an orchestra tuning its instruments before the performance truly begins. And speaking of orchestras, or at least their ancient Roman equivalent, small theaters and street performances spring to life. Actors donning exaggerated masks begin their shows, illuminated by torches and small fires. Crowds gather, eager to escape the stresses of daily life, if only for a few moments of comedy or drama. In Rome, entertainment wasn't reserved for grand amphitheaters alone. It played out nightly on every corner. As darkness deepens, you hear the rhythmic, echoing footsteps of the vigiles, the watchmen patrolling the streets, their torches held aloft, casting moving shadows onto the buildings around them. Their job was simple yet crucial: keep the peace, watch for thieves, and prevent fires. Rome was many wonderful things, but fireproof was not one of them. These men moved through the city like ghostly guardians, reassuring yet intimidating. Now, let's briefly step into a nearby tavern, where warmth, laughter, and the smell of wine greet you immediately. It's crowded, bustling with laborers, craftsmen, and off-duty soldiers swapping stories, placing bets, and occasionally bursting into song. The tavern owner serves cheap wine mixed with honey and spices, ladling it generously into worn cups. A few patrons snack on salted almonds or a bowl of beans, the ancient equivalent of bar snacks. These taverns weren't just places to drink, they were community hubs, centers of gossip and camaraderie. Tonight, You overhear snippets of conversations about politics, the latest scandal in the Senate, or even wild stories about mythical creatures lurking in dark alleys. In Rome, rumor and fact mixed freely, especially after a few cups of cheap wine. Leaving the tavern behind, you venture toward the city baths, another bustling nighttime spot. Romans adored their baths part spa, part gym, part social club. Even at night, these buildings hum with life. Lantern-lit pools glimmer softly, and men and women soak in warm waters, letting go of the day's tensions. Steam rises gently into the night air, carrying soft murmurs of conversation about business, love, philosophy, or simply the latest gladiator matches. You pause, taking in the soothing sight. In these moments, you see the quieter side of Rome, the everyday people, finding brief peace and respite in small comforts. As you move further into the city, you notice temples glowing softly, their marble columns bathed in golden lamplight. Priests tend to altars, carefully performing nighttime rituals, burning incense, and offering whispered prayers to deities who protected Rome and its people. Romans were deeply spiritual, seeing signs and messages from the gods everywhere, especially in the quiet hours after dark. Night wasn't just the end of the day, it was a time when gods walked among mortals, listening to prayers and sometimes answering in mysterious ways. But let's not dwell too long in temples and prayers. As you continue your journey, you pass wealthy villas again, gardens gently illuminated by torches, with fountains quietly bubbling beneath trees. Private parties and dinners continue behind high walls, music drifting softly outwards, punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter. Meanwhile, in narrow alleys nearby, young lovers meet in secret, whispering beneath the stars, oblivious to the world around them. Romance was as much a part of nighttime Rome as intrigue and mystery. Every shadowy corner held secrets and stories, some sweet, some scandalous, but all quietly thrilling. You slowly realize something beautiful. Nighttime in Rome was a tapestry, woven from countless threads of human life, rich and poor, love and loss, gossip and wisdom, silence and celebration, all unfolding simultaneously under the same moonlit sky. And so, as we dive deeper into Rome's nighttime secrets, let yourself drift comfortably. Allow the gentle rhythm of the city to carry you into a peaceful, restful state. Because tonight, we're not rushing through history, we're savoring each slow, peaceful moment together. Take a deep breath, let your thoughts wander comfortably, and when you're ready, we'll continue our slow, gentle walk into Roman streets bathed by moonlight. As you move further into the Roman night, you find yourself wandering streets illuminated by nothing more than moonlight and the soft, flickering glow of oil lamps. If you imagine Rome's streets as romantic and tranquil by night, well, reality might gently nudge you otherwise. Let's just say Rome wasn't exactly the kind of place you'd want to stroll barefoot in the dark, not that shoes provided much comfort back then either. Streets weren't neatly paved with smooth stone for casual evening strolls. They were crowded, noisy, and more often than not, smelled like something you definitely didn't want to identify. You see, Roman streets were a mixture of cobblestones, mud, and more than a little refuse from the day. Imagine dodging small puddles and uneven stones, all while navigating shadows cast by tall, densely packed apartment buildings. These buildings loomed overhead, 4 or 5 stories high, often leaning suspiciously close to their neighbors as if sharing secrets. The narrowness of the streets amplified sounds. Conversations echoed, laughter bounced off the walls, and footsteps resonated with a curious clarity. Occasionally, you'd hear a loud shout, "Cave," the Latin equivalent of "watch out," followed by the splash of something you'd rather not think about too much. Because here's an inconvenient truth. Roman sanitation didn't exactly extend to garbage collection or sewage systems in poorer districts. Throwing waste from windows was normal, even at night. Thus, walking Rome's streets after dark wasn't just adventurous, it was an exercise in agility and luck. But don't worry too much, Rome had people watching over you at night. These were the vigiles, or watchmen, whose job description included firefighting, policing the streets, and generally ensuring people behaved themselves. You'd see them moving silently, their torches illuminating dark corners, checking doorways, and occasionally giving stern warnings to suspicious-looking characters. They were respected yet feared figures, crucial for a city as densely packed and flammable as Rome. A careless torch or unattended cooking fire could spell disaster in an instant, especially given how close together buildings were. You pause at an intersection, hearing murmured voices from a nearby alley, likely gamblers placing secretive bets on dice games. Gambling was technically illegal, but widely practiced. Romans adored their games of chance, wagering everything from coins to clothing, and often doing so quietly, out of sight of vigilant eyes. Nearby, a shadowy figure darts quickly across your path, disappearing into another narrow street. Rome's thieves were as legendary as its emperors. Nighttime was their domain, darkness providing the perfect cloak for pickpockets and burglars. Merchants and wealthy citizens often hired private guards or had slaves posted outside their homes, alert and ready to chase off unwanted guests. Still, no matter how vigilant, Rome's thieves were endlessly creative, crafty characters lurking in the shadows of history. You move carefully along, mindful of the many quiet dramas playing out around you. Ahead, an argument grows louder from a tavern door. Two men squabble over money, reputation, or perhaps a broken promise. Romans were famously passionate people, their disagreements quickly becoming theatrical, gesturing wildly, voices rising dramatically, neighbors occasionally joining in, more for entertainment than genuine concern. But it's not all gloom and conflict. Just around the next corner, you catch sight of something far more pleasant, a small gathering of musicians performing softly by lantern light. A flute player, accompanied by a gentle lyre and rhythmic drums, provides a delicate soundtrack to the night. Passers-by stop briefly, listening appreciatively, tossing a few coins into the musicians' waiting hats. Moments like these remind you that Rome was as full of beauty and culture as it was intrigue and mischief. Continuing your stroll, you approach the banks of the Tiber, Rome's great river, quietly whispering through the night. Moonlight shimmers gently on the water, and a soft breeze carries distant music and laughter from parties on riverboats. Wealthier Romans sometimes hosted gatherings aboard floating villas, enjoying wine and conversation beneath the stars. The Tiber at night was almost romantic, its quiet banks a stark contrast to the busy city streets just a few steps away. As you leave the river behind, you head back into the heart of the city, past brightly lit villas with private guards posted outside. Wealth in Rome meant safety and privilege, something visible even from the street. Occasionally, you'd glimpse into these villas' beautifully decorated courtyards, complete with fountains softly gurgling, illuminated by carefully placed torches. Roman architecture was a marvel, designed not only for aesthetics, but also for comfort and tranquility, at least, for those lucky enough to afford it. Further along, you pass small shrines to various gods and spirits placed at street corners. Romans were incredibly superstitious, especially after dark. Leaving offerings of wine, fruit, or small coins to protective household gods' lairs and penates was routine. Small oil lamps flickered gently beside these shrines, illuminating statuettes and inscriptions asking for protection, health, or good fortune. Nighttime in Rome wasn't just physical darkness. It was a world alive with unseen forces, spirits, and divine influences, all deserving respect and attention. You find yourself drawn toward one such shrine, noticing tiny bronze figures and votive offerings, tokens of hopes, dreams, or even anxieties left by ordinary Romans, quietly praying for guidance through life's uncertainties. In this quiet, flickering lamplight, you sense how deeply Romans felt connected to their beliefs, their gods always close, always listening, especially at night. And now, let's move gently towards another side of Roman nightlife. The homes, the bedtime rituals, the quiet moments before sleep took hold. Because as lively as Rome's streets could be, within every apartment, villa, or modest room, nighttime was also deeply personal, a time for quiet reflection, dreams, and the hope of restful sleep. As you leave Rome's bustling nighttime streets behind, let's step gently into the privacy of Roman homes, from humble apartments to grand villas, as night deepens and Romans prepare for sleep. The first thing you notice is how Romans approached bedtime, something familiar, yet strikingly different from what you'd expect. For starters, there was no flick of a light switch, no comfy pajamas, no cozy memory foam mattress. Roman beds ranged dramatically based on your social status, but none were what you'd call luxurious by today's standards. Let's start with the average Roman household, tucked away in those densely packed insulae apartments. Picture a single room shared by an entire family, parents, children, maybe a few cousins, grandparents, and occasionally some livestock, because Roman apartments weren't exactly known for spaciousness or privacy. At night, the room would shift from living quarters into sleeping quarters, mats of woven straw rolled out directly onto the floor, each family member claiming their spot. These straw mats were simple, no fancy linen sheets or fluffy pillows here. If you were lucky, you might have a thin blanket or cloak for warmth, though winters in Rome were mild enough that warmth wasn't always your first concern. The real challenge was comfort. Imagine trying to sleep while feeling every bump and pebble beneath your back, constantly adjusting, never quite finding the perfect position. Tossing and turning wasn't a modern problem, it was universal. And let's briefly touch on nighttime hygiene, because Romans, despite their love for public baths, weren't exactly scrubbing down thoroughly before bed. Evening hygiene typically involved a quick wash of hands, feet, and maybe your face if you were feeling fancy. Roman bathrooms at home were minimal, often just a basin of water tucked into a corner. So, if cleanliness is next to godliness, the average Roman was probably somewhere further down the ladder at bedtime. Clothing for bed was equally straightforward, usually just the same simple tunic you'd worn all day, or perhaps nothing at all. Romans weren't shy about nudity, especially at home, where modesty gave way to practicality. Sleeping in nothing but your skin was common, especially on warm summer nights, though you'd still keep a tunic nearby just in case the vigiles or neighbors came knocking unexpectedly. Speaking of neighbors, apartment life in Rome meant that bedtime didn't guarantee silence. Walls were thin, floors creaky, and voices carried. Imagine lying awake, hearing snippets of conversation through your walls, couples quietly arguing, children laughing despite parental scolding, or someone's persistent cough echoing from upstairs. If you thought your modern apartment had noise issues, Rome's insulae would make you reconsider. But let's take a moment now to visit the wealthier side of Roman bedtime rituals. In spacious villas, bedtime looked very different. Here you find lavishly decorated rooms with mosaic floors, frescoes, and elegant bronze lamps casting warm, flickering light. Beds in wealthy Roman households were ornate, wooden or bronze frames holding up woven ropes topped by soft mattresses stuffed with wool or feathers. Blankets were finely woven wool or linen, often beautifully embroidered, providing comfort and warmth. Wealthy Romans would take their evening baths privately at home, soaking leisurely in warm water scented with oils and herbs. Afterward, servants would help them prepare for sleep, massaging scented oils into skin, brushing hair, and dressing them in fresh, soft tunics specifically for bedtime. Romans placed great importance on appearance, hygiene, and comfort, at least those who could afford it did. Yet even in these luxurious homes, bedtime had its quirks. Take, for instance, Roman dental hygiene or lack thereof. Romans, despite having surprisingly good hygiene practices overall, had no concept of modern toothpaste. Instead, they'd sometimes chew on twigs or rinse their mouths with vinegar or diluted wine. Imagine settling into your beautifully soft mattress, only to be reminded by your aching tooth that dental care was one thing Rome still had room to improve on. Regardless of wealth, all Romans shared one thing at night: dreams and their meanings. Dreams weren't just fleeting thoughts in Rome. They were omens, messages from the gods or ancestors. Romans took dreams very seriously, often consulting dream interpreters or carefully recording what they'd seen upon waking. Imagine the stress of having a particularly vivid nightmare, worrying all night about what it meant for your future. For Romans, a bad dream was never simply dismissed as anxiety or late-night snack-induced. It was something to decode carefully, with divine implications. And this brings us to bedtime superstitions. Every Roman home, rich or poor, held protective charms or amulets placed strategically near beds or windows. These could be simple objects, a sprig of herbs, small figurines of household gods, or more elaborate carved amulets inscribed with protective prayers. Romans believed deeply in unseen forces, especially at night when the veil between worlds felt thinner. Imagine lying in bed, knowing spirits or gods might be close by, watching over you, or perhaps watching a little too closely. Still, despite all these nighttime rituals, beliefs, and quirks, sleep eventually came. Rome gradually fell quiet, street sounds softened, families drifted into dreams, rich and poor alike surrendering to sleep's gentle embrace. Take a moment now to picture it clearly. Rome at midnight, softly illuminated by moonlight and flickering oil lamps. Apartment windows darkened, villa gardens silent, streets nearly deserted save for occasional patrols. A city finally at rest, if only for a few short hours before dawn. And speaking of dawn, Rome never stayed quiet for long. Soon enough, bakers would rise to prepare bread, servants would begin chores, and merchants would make their way back to markets. But let's not rush the night. Instead, let's gently savor this peaceful moment, where nothing but dreams and soft breathing filled Rome's sleeping homes. Allow your thoughts to drift now, imagining yourself as one of these Romans, tucked safely in your bed, wrapped in a soft wool blanket, or perhaps nothing at all, with moonlight streaming gently through a small window. Let the peaceful rhythm of ancient Rome carry you deeper into relaxation. Soon, we'll continue our gentle journey, exploring the hidden dreams and nighttime secrets of Romans from every walk of life. But for now, breathe deeply, relax fully, and allow Rome's quiet night to embrace you comfortably. Nighttime in Rome wasn't just a pause in the hustle and bustle, it was also a doorway into another world. Romans believed dreams were not random images or meaningless stories created by restless minds. Instead, dreams were messages, glimpses into the future, warnings from the gods, or even visits from the spirits of ancestors. So as you lie in your quiet Roman bedroom, you begin to drift, gently slipping into a world of dreams, visions, and quiet mysteries. Imagine now that you're falling asleep as an average Roman. Before sleep overtakes you completely, you might whisper a quick prayer to your household gods, known as the lares. These small, watchful spirits were believed to protect your family, your home, and even your dreams. Romans trusted deeply in their protective powers, leaving offerings like wine, bread, or flowers by small household shrines placed near bedrooms or entryways. These offerings were like polite invitations, a gentle request for good dreams and protection from harm. But sometimes, despite your best efforts, dreams could turn unsettling. Picture this. You find yourself walking along the banks of the Tiber at night, guided only by faint moonlight. The streets seem familiar yet eerily deserted, silent except for the soft lapping of water against the riverbank. In your dream, you suddenly sense something behind you, a shadow, whispering voices, or maybe just a feeling you can't quite shake. Romans would have interpreted this unsettling dream carefully, wondering if a god or ancestor was delivering a subtle warning. If a dream like this woke you abruptly, you wouldn't dismiss it lightly. Instead, you'd reflect on every detail, perhaps even seeking out someone specialized in dream interpretation the next day. These interpreters, often priests or seers found near temples or marketplaces, would listen carefully, analyzing symbols, actions, or even colors within the dream. They would gently explain if your dream was a warning, advice, or something else entirely. For instance, dreaming of water or rivers was often seen as symbolic. Clear, flowing water might represent purity, prosperity, or positive change, whereas muddy or turbulent water could signal trouble or emotional upheaval. Even animals appearing in dreams carried symbolic weight. Snakes could warn of hidden dangers or betrayal, whereas birds might represent good news or important messages arriving soon. But let's not linger only on dreams and omens. Romans had a fascinating relationship with nightmares, especially dreams featuring restless spirits or ghosts. Ancestors held significant importance in Roman culture. Their spirits were believed to watch over descendants, protecting or guiding them through life's twists and turns. However, not every ancestral visit was comforting. Imagine another dream this time. You see an ancestor, perhaps a grandparent or parent, standing silently by your bedside. Their presence isn't threatening exactly, yet their solemn expression leaves you unsettled. Romans viewed such dreams seriously, interpreting them as messages from the afterlife. Perhaps the ancestor was dissatisfied, needing an offering, recognition, or proper remembrance rituals. Romans would respond by holding special ceremonies, lighting candles, or leaving small meals at family shrines, gently urging these spirits to rest peacefully again. Sometimes nightmares featured more mythical creatures Romans genuinely feared. Lamia, a terrifying figure from Roman folklore, often haunted dreams. She was described as a female monster who preyed upon children, causing sickness or even death. Nightmares about Lamia weren't uncommon, especially among mothers anxious about their children's health. Such dreams could prompt immediate protective actions, amulets placed under pillows, herbs burned for protection, or even invoking the aid of powerful goddesses like Diana or Minerva to keep evil at bay. But not all dreams were negative or frightening. Romans also experienced profoundly comforting dreams, visits from gods who reassured them during challenging times, visions of prosperity, or reunions with departed loved ones. Imagine dreaming of walking through a lush, sunlit garden alongside a deceased relative, feeling nothing but peace, warmth, and love. Romans cherished dreams like these, interpreting them as signs of divine favor or reassurance from ancestors. Such dreams could inspire genuine hope, guiding Romans through life's struggles with renewed optimism. Now, let's gently return to your Roman bedroom, lying comfortably as the night stretches onward. Beside your bed, you might have placed protective charms or amulets, carved gemstones, bronze figurines, or small scrolls inscribed with prayers. Romans believed strongly in these protective objects, viewing them as shields against harm, both physical and supernatural. One popular amulet was the bulla, a small, round pendant worn especially by children. Made from gold, leather, or cloth, bulli held protective charms inside, carefully selected by parents to ward off evil spirits. Even adults occasionally wore similar protective amulets, especially at night when vulnerability felt heightened. Imagine reaching out to touch such an amulet now, feeling comforted by its presence, reassured that unseen forces watched gently over you. For Romans, night was not something faced alone. Even in quiet darkness, they felt supported by ancestors, gods, protective charms, and amulets, an entire network of spiritual comfort enveloping them as they drifted toward peaceful sleep. And speaking of sleep, Romans had intriguing rituals to ease insomnia. If sleep eluded them, wealthy Romans might quietly stroll in their private gardens by moonlight, breathing in the scent of flowers and herbs, hoping their calming aromas would gently lull them back to rest. Some might pick up scrolls, poetry, philosophy, or historical writings to read quietly until their eyes grew heavy once again. Sleep, like dreams, was viewed respectfully, something necessary, yet not always cooperative. For Romans struggling with sleep, various herbal remedies might also help. Herbalists prescribed chamomile, lavender, or valerian root teas to promote relaxation, gently encouraging restful slumber. These ancient remedies, familiar even today, remind us that human needs for peaceful sleep and comfort haven't changed much over thousands of years. Now, picture yourself gently drifting deeper into sleep once more, comforted by the quiet nighttime rituals, protective charms, and gentle whisper of Roman dreams. Night in Rome was truly a complex tapestry woven from quiet moments, whispered prayers, comforting rituals, protective spirits, dreams both troubling and reassuring, and deep connections to the unseen world. Let your mind drift comfortably now, allowing Roman nighttime rituals and peaceful dreams to carry you deeper into restful sleep. Soon, we'll explore another facet of Roman night, the lively midnight parties, the revelries and feasts held by Rome's wealthier citizens, stretching into the early hours beneath starry skies. But for now, let your breathing grow slow and gentle, picturing Rome's peaceful night enfolding you, protecting you, and guiding you toward restful dreams. As Rome settles into the deepest hours of night, not everyone is quietly dreaming or tucked away safely in bed. For many Romans, especially the wealthy, influential, or simply indulgent, midnight was when festivities reached their peak. From lavish banquets to more humble tavern celebrations, nighttime in Rome had a lively, joyous, and occasionally outrageous side too. Let's step gently now from quiet dreams and protective amulets into the sparkling lights, laughter, and soft music drifting from one of Rome's luxurious villas. Imagine yourself strolling toward a grand home on the Palatine Hill, the center of Roman wealth and power. You hear soft, inviting melodies carried on the night air, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the gentle clink of cups filled with rich, honeyed wine. Approaching the villa, torches illuminate a spacious garden filled with olive trees, marble statues, and beautifully carved fountains. Guests recline gracefully on plush couches arranged around low tables laden with dishes, succulent roast meats, fresh seafood seasoned with rare spices from distant lands, delicate pastries dripping with honey, fruits picked at their ripest. This is a Roman convivium, a dinner party combining food, drink, music, and conversation, all designed to delight the senses and create unforgettable memories. As you enter quietly, observing from the shadows, you notice that Romans had unique etiquette for parties. Meals were often served lying down, a tradition borrowed from Greek culture, guests reclining on one elbow while eating leisurely. Dinner wasn't rushed. It lasted hours, each course carefully presented by attentive slaves, each bite savored. Romans believed food was not merely nourishment, but a sensory experience, something to be slowly enjoyed, discussed, and appreciated. Around you, conversations ebb and flow gently, covering everything from politics to philosophy, poetry to gossip. Wealthy Romans were expected to be cultured and knowledgeable, capable of discussing complex ideas or reciting favorite verses from memory. Occasionally, guests might even recite their own poetry, hoping for praise or friendly critique. Imagine now a poet rising gracefully, holding a scroll gently in one hand, softly clearing their throat. They recite verses praising love, beauty, or friendship, their voice clear yet gentle, floating across the garden, listened to respectfully by everyone present. Romans adored poetry, believing it touched the soul and revealed hidden truths. Yet, let's be honest, sometimes these poetic recitals dragged on just a little too long, guests struggling politely not to yawn or gently slip into a food-induced sleep. Nearby, musicians softly play lyres, flutes, and drums, providing a soothing soundtrack to the evening's conversations. Roman music was simple yet captivating, meant to enhance the atmosphere rather than dominate attention. Occasionally, a professional singer might entertain guests, performing popular songs or ballads recounting heroic adventures or tragic love stories. Romans adored music as much as poetry, viewing both as essential elements of a civilized life. But not every Roman party was so refined or calm. As you move gently away from elegant villas, let's briefly peek into a more modest celebration happening simultaneously elsewhere in Rome. Picture a crowded tavern tucked into a narrow side street, its warm interior lit by smoky oil lamps. Inside, the atmosphere is lively, joyful, and more than slightly chaotic. Here, Romans gather around tables, drinking cheap wine mixed generously with honey and spices, laughing loudly, playing games of dice or knucklebones. Occasionally, arguments erupt over lost bets, spilled drinks, or imagined slights quickly resolved by friends laughingly pulling disputants apart. Romans were passionate, quick to anger yet equally quick to forgive, especially among friends. In one corner, a group sings raucous drinking songs, each verse growing increasingly absurd and hilarious. Romans loved humor, even or perhaps especially at their own expense. Satirical verses poking fun at politicians, gladiators, or even gods drew laughter and cheers, reminding everyone present not to take life too seriously. And of course, gambling happens openly. Dice games were hugely popular, despite occasional attempts by emperors to curb gambling's excesses. Romans wagered coins, clothing, even small personal items, their excitement rising with each throw. You watch as a young man shakes dice in his hand, grinning confidently, tossing them onto the table as friends cheer or groan dramatically. For Romans, gambling wasn't just about winning or losing, it was entertainment, excitement, a brief escape from daily concerns. Now, let's move gently back toward the more sophisticated side of Rome's midnight revelries. Returning to our elegant villa, you notice something intriguing, the host quietly signaling servants to bring out a special treat. Romans adored surprises at parties, especially culinary ones. The servants carefully placed dishes before guests, removing covers with theatrical flourish, revealing exotic fruits, rare pastries, or even delicacies like flamingo tongues, a delicacy surprisingly popular among Rome's elite. And speaking of surprising delicacies, Romans often flavored foods with unusual spices, pepper, cinnamon, saffron, or exotic herbs imported at great expense from distant provinces. These flavors amazed guests, sparking conversation and curiosity about foreign lands, cultures, and customs. Romans, despite their famous self-confidence, were endlessly fascinated by the wider world, their tables reflecting this curiosity vividly. Eventually, as hours passed gently into late night, guests begin quietly departing, warmly thanking their host, walking homeward beneath starry skies. Roman parties didn't end abruptly, they faded gradually, like music softly drifting away. Guests carried memories home, good food, stimulating conversation, poetry, laughter, perhaps even a gentle philosophical insight or two. But let's not rush away too quickly. Pause here a moment longer, savoring the quiet tranquility that returns to this villa as the last guests depart. Servants quietly clean up dishes, extinguish lamps, and straighten cushions, preparing the home once again for daytime living. Rome's nights were both vibrant and peaceful, filled with lively celebrations, yet always returning gently to silence and sleep. Let yourself drift comfortably now, imagining Rome's festive side slowly fading, replaced by peaceful quiet, dreams gently returning. Soon, we'll gently explore Rome's quiet early morning hours, when bakers rise, temples open, and a new day slowly unfolds. But for now, relax fully, picturing Rome's lively midnight celebrations gradually softening, easing gently toward restful sleep once again. As Rome's festive laughter fades into the stillness of the early morning, the city slips into its quietest, most contemplative hours. This is the in-between time when revelers have finally staggered home, when the lamps have been extinguished, and even the watchman's footsteps seem more distant, more cautious. The deep hours of the night belong to the sleepers, the dreamers, and the quietly diligent few who rise before the sun. Imagine yourself awake in this moment, standing once more on a quiet Roman street. The echoes of the midnight revelries are gone. Even the dogs that barked earlier have given in to rest. The stars stretch across the Roman sky, brilliant in a way that modern cities can no longer offer, each one twinkling above terracotta rooftops, temples, and ancient cobblestones. You walk slowly now. There's no need to hurry. The air feels cooler, touched by a faint breeze from the Tiber. Rome feels different at this hour, still ancient and mighty, but gentler. Even the buildings seem to rest. In the richer quarters, you pass grand villas where even the guards are now seated, heads nodding, lulled by the peace of the hour. Courtyard fountains trickle softly, their sound echoing across mosaic tiles and polished marble. Somewhere inside, a scribe may be working by lamplight, finishing a letter or copying a scroll, his fingers ink-stained, eyes weary, but mind focused. Some Romans found this hour ideal for thinking, writing, or praying. No distractions, no interruptions, just the sound of their own breathing and the occasional creak of timber or whisper of wind. Further downhill, in the poorer districts, the silence is pierced only by the gentle rustle of cloth, the shifting of sleepers. The insulae are still. Families lie huddled on straw mats, wrapped in thin blankets, the scent of yesterday's cooking still faint in the air. Outside, a few shapes move in the shadows, bakers, mostly. Rome's day begins with bread, and bread begins in the darkness. Let's follow them now quietly, without disturbing their rhythm. The bakery's doors are already open, revealing warm orange light spilling into the street. Inside, the air is thick with flour and the comforting scent of yeast. Fires are roaring. Great domed ovens are being stoked, their stone mouths glowing red. The bakers move like a practiced dance, measured, efficient. One kneads dough with powerful, experienced hands. Another shapes loaves, scoring the tops with a curved knife. A third, younger man carries heavy trays of shaped loaves to the ovens, sweat already glistening on his brow despite the hour. You stand quietly in a corner, unnoticed, watching them work. Their silence isn't solemn, it's focused. This is the rhythm of the city beginning anew. Before long, carts will line up outside, ready to distribute fresh bread to taverns, markets, and wealthy households. But for now, it's just you, the soft thud of dough on wood, the whoosh of the oven, and the crackle of fire. As you step back outside, the city begins to stir. Soft noises return, subtly at first, the clop of hooves on stone as farmers arrive early with carts of produce, the creak of doors opening, and the low murmur of temple priests preparing for the dawn rites. Temples, after all, awaken with the city. Each god and goddess has their rituals, and the first offerings are made as light begins to rise over the hills. At the Temple of Vesta, priestesses kindle the sacred fire, a symbol of Rome's eternal life. At the shrines of Jupiter, Mars, or Minerva, priests wash statues, pour libations, burn incense, and mutter prayers that have been spoken for generations. Let's step into one of these temples now, not as a visitor, but as someone simply passing by. The doors are open, and the scent of burning herbs drifts into the street. Inside, flickering light from oil lamps dances on stone columns and painted ceilings. The marble is cool beneath your feet, and the silence here feels different, intentional, sacred. A priest stands before the altar, pouring oil onto a small flame. Another chants softly, in Latin so old and rhythmic, it sounds almost like song. You don't need to understand every word. The feeling is enough, a humbling sense of continuity, that these rituals, this reverence, connects Rome's present to its past, and even to the gods themselves. Outside again, the light is beginning to shift. The sky moves from star-speckled black to a deep, quiet blue. The edges of rooftops catch the first golden rays of the sun. You can hear it now, Rome waking up. Taverns begin to reopen, their doors creaking wide, the tables swept clean, the firepots relit for warm wine and stew. Street cleaners, slaves, and freedmen alike sweep the alleys with straw brooms, clearing the remains of the previous night. Shopkeepers unlatch wooden shutters, calling greetings to each other, stretching, adjusting their tunics, and preparing for a new day of trade. Even the forums, Rome's civic heart, begin to show life. Government buildings, market stalls, public notice boards all stand in patient silence, waiting for the voices, arguments, and footsteps that will soon return. But you're not rushing. You've walked through Rome's night, heard its laughter, felt its silences, glimpsed its hidden moments. The city, vast and powerful, also showed you its quiet soul. As dawn breaks, you find yourself once again atop a hill, maybe the Palatine, where emperors once lived, or the Aventine, where gardens bloom. You look down over the rooftops, temples, and winding streets, now glowing with the amber light of early morning. It's here, in this peaceful moment, that you realize something beautiful. Rome, this immense, complicated, thunderous place, was not just about conquests and emperors, senators and soldiers. It was made up of countless nights like this one, of laughter over wine, of whispered prayers in dim rooms, of quiet footsteps through silent streets. It was a city of dreamers, laborers, lovers, thinkers, and for a few hours each night, all of them found peace. Breathe in deeply now, picturing the sun finally cresting the eastern hills. The city is awake. The bakeries are bustling, temples alive with song, streets filled with purpose. But in your heart, you still carry the quiet of the Roman night. Let your mind settle here for just a little longer. Because while history remembers the grand moments, the battles and speeches, the truth is civilizations are lived in the quiet hours, the gentle rituals, the soft footsteps between dusk and dawn. And now, at last, Rome stands fully revealed once more in daylight. The city, which for hours whispered in half light and shadows, bursts again into color, sound, and purpose. But before it returns to its usual bustling rhythm, there's a moment so brief you might miss it when the entire city seems to hold its breath. You are standing there, just as the sun clears the rooftops, stretching its golden fingers across the 7 hills. The rooftops warm to amber, the temples shimmer. Even the most modest clay tiles of the insulae seem touched by something sacred. Rome is waking, but it hasn't quite stirred yet. You sit quietly on a low stone wall, watching this transition. Somewhere a rooster crows. A few doors creak open. But for a heartbeat, you are completely still in a city frozen between worlds, the one of sleep and dreams, and the one of law, commerce, labor, and ambition. This quiet moment belongs to you. As you rise, your feet moving slowly over sun-warmed cobblestones, you take in the subtle signs of transition. The scent of bread now mingles with the smell of fresh-cut herbs being set out in baskets for sale. The baker you watched earlier is now handing steaming loaves through a window to a waiting boy, who sprints away down the street, trailing crumbs and laughter. At the corner fountain, a woman fills clay jugs with water, her robe neatly pinned, her hair still slightly damp from a morning rinse. She greets an older man sweeping the steps of his workshop, who grunts a familiar salve and waves his broom in a lazy arc. The day begins not with fanfare, but with simple actions familiar, necessary, timeless. In the wealthier districts, servants open heavy wooden shutters with practiced ease, letting in the fresh air. Birds, long ignored through the night, now sing freely from tiled rooftops and terracotta planters. Cats, those silent observers of Roman life, slip quietly from courtyards to alleyways, their watchful eyes missing nothing. You pass by a temple, its doors wide now. The scent of incense hangs heavier, richer than before. A small crowd gathers for the morning rites. Priests chant with clear voices. A woman with tired eyes and careful steps lights a candle and whispers a prayer for a child, perhaps, or a sick parent, or just for a little peace in her heart. And though the gods may not answer every request, the act of asking brings a kind of comfort. Further on, you notice a group of boys playing a game with pebbles in the dust, pausing to argue about the rules as all children do. A pair of teenage girls walk past them, giggling behind their sleeves, the boys suddenly standing taller, trying to seem heroic. Some things never change. You make your way toward the forum, which is beginning to buzz. Merchants lay out wares, fabrics, fruits, scrolls, amphorae of wine. Artisans display their tools and trinkets. Debaters already shout passionately, arms waving like wind-blown flags, gathering small crowds with their words. It's all so alive. And yet, you can still feel the lingering presence of night, a softness in the way sunlight filters through narrow streets, a memory in the smell of lamp oil, a gentleness in people's voices not yet hardened by the business of the day. This is Rome. Not just its power, not only its grandeur, but its pulse steady, ancient, human. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, but because there's no need to rush. You've seen something most never think to look for the intimate, overlooked life of a city known for spectacle. You've walked its midnight streets, stood beside bakers, listened to priests, smiled at musicians, and dreamed beneath its tiled roofs. And as you continue your stroll, you begin to realize you carry something back with you. A sense of connection, perhaps. A feeling of closeness to people long gone, who were more like you than you might have imagined. Because in the end, the history of Rome isn't just emperors and marble and conquest. It's nights filled with laughter, quiet hopes, shared meals, soft music, whispered prayers. It's the peaceful hours when nobody was watching, and everyone was simply human. So take a deep breath and let this feeling settle warmly in your chest. You're not in a rush. You're not expected anywhere. You can stay in this place just a little longer. The streets are bright now. The day has begun. But you, if you wish, can still drift, wrapped in the softness of Rome's night. Let sleep take you gently, or keep dreaming with your eyes open. Here, in the quiet before the forum fills, before the sun climbs too high, you are exactly where you need to be. Before we finally leave Rome's nighttime behind, let's take one more slow walk, not through the streets this time, but into the varied and fascinating sleeping spaces of the city's people. Because sleep in Rome wasn't just a biological necessity, it was a deeply personal, cultural, even architectural experience. Let's start with the insulae again, the stacked, often precarious apartment buildings where the majority of Rome's population lived. If you step quietly into one of these darkened rooms, what do you see? A single oil lamp glows softly, casting long, shaky shadows onto cracked plaster walls. The air is warm, tinged with the scent of smoke and worn fabric. A family sleeps shoulder to shoulder, curled beneath coarse wool blankets. A clay jug of water sits on a small wooden table. In one corner, a mother shifts slightly in her sleep, instinctively reaching to touch her child's back, checking that he's still there, still breathing. From above, you hear a thud, maybe someone turned in their sleep. Below, a muffled cough. Rome at night was not silent, not truly. In these packed buildings, the city breathed together. Every creak of the beams, every snore or whisper was shared. Now contrast that with a noble villa. Step through the doorway, past servants quietly cleaning up the last of the evening's feast. You enter a sleeping chamber much larger, better ventilated, and thoughtfully arranged. The bed is wide, framed in carved wood or bronze. Linen curtains hang loosely for privacy and decoration. The mattress, stuffed with wool or feathers, bears neatly folded sheets and a pillow not too soft, but far more luxurious than straw. Nearby, a low table holds a cup of wine, or perhaps a few preserved dates. A scroll lies half-read, left open beside a flickering lamp. There might be soft sandals placed neatly beside the bed, or a pair of delicate earrings left on the edge of a small dish. Here, too, people stir in their sleep. A senator rolls over, murmuring a name. A wife dreams of her childhood home. Even the wealthy, surrounded by comfort, know the weight of restlessness, the power of dreams. And between these two extremes, so many variations. Soldiers sleeping in barracks, cloaks pulled tightly around their shoulders. Freedmen sleeping in shared rooms above workshops. Priests dozing in temple quarters, lulled by the scent of incense and old stone. Travelers sleeping in inns, their sandals tucked under the bed, bags hugged close to their chest. Each Roman carried their own rituals into sleep. Some tied protective charms to their wrists or tucked them beneath their pillows. Some whispered prayers to Mercury or Minerva. Others simply lay down, closed their eyes, and hoped the gods would leave them be for one more night. But beyond the walls of these homes, Rome itself never truly slept. Even now, as you step outside again, the city hums softly, steadily. You hear it in the distant clip-clop of hooves, in the low bark of a dog, in the rustling of wind through fig trees planted beside old stone courtyards. You pass a woman sitting silently on a doorstep, eyes toward the sky. Perhaps she's waiting, or perhaps she simply couldn't sleep. Romans, like all of us, knew the feeling of lying awake and letting thoughts wander. You continue on. In a dark alley, a shadow moves, perhaps a cat, perhaps something else. A whisper of a breeze lifts the hem of your cloak. Somewhere, faintly, someone sings a lullaby, maybe, or a prayer, or simply a tune passed down through generations. You're not afraid. Rome, even at night, feels familiar now. The longer you walk, the more it feels like home. Let your mind relax into this scene, where every doorway holds a story, every window shelters a dream. Rome, this eternal city, is not just columns and forums. It is breath, warmth, and the heartbeat of countless lives woven together. And now, As the final hour of night approaches, you take one more long look around you. The moon has dropped lower, its light softer now, paler. The air smells of damp earth, warm bread, and the faintest trace of burned oil. In the distance, the first true light of dawn begins to edge the clouds with gold. You turn toward it not rushing, not afraid to leave the night behind, but filled with gratitude for what it gave you. A quiet window into the human soul of an ancient world. And as that light begins to rise, so too does the rhythm of life. A new day begins in Rome. But for you, the journey may just be beginning, or perhaps ending in peaceful sleep. Let the quiet take you gently and rest. Let's pause just for a little while to focus not on what you see, but what you hear. Because the nighttime soundscape of ancient Rome was never truly silent, far from it. It was a delicate web of noises, each one telling its own story, revealing its own little truth about life in the city. Close your eyes, take a slow breath, and listen. You might first hear the steady creak of wood, perhaps a cart being pulled along uneven cobblestones. Maybe it's a delivery to one of the wealthier homes, a barrel of imported wine or a basket of ripe dates arriving before sunrise. Or perhaps it's a public works crew, restocking oil lamps and inspecting street corners for damage. The cart squeaks forward slowly, wheels struggling against ancient ruts worn deep into the road. Then there's the sound of footsteps. Some hurried merchants rising before dawn to claim a spot at the market, or a midwife rushing quietly to a home where new life is arriving. Others are slower, more casual watchmen patrolling with torchlight flickering across their polished helmets. Their sandals slap against stone in a gentle rhythm, echoing softly through alleyways. Above, you might hear a shutter creak open. A house slave, waking early to begin the day's chores. She pours water into a basin, the splash breaking the quiet. A door hinges open. A broom begins to sweep. These are the domestic sounds of Rome's waking hours, mundane perhaps, but comforting in their regularity. In the distance, a dog barks once then again. Perhaps it has spotted a fox darting through the street, or simply senses the tension between night and day, where shadows still hold sway and the light hasn't yet banished them. And sometimes you hear things without knowing quite what they are. A thump, a low murmur, a muffled cry. Rome, like any great city, had its mysteries, its secrets whispered behind doors, its stories told in footsteps and sudden silence. But these sounds weren't frightening. They were part of the city's rhythm. You learned to tell them apart, to recognize which noises meant joy, which meant trouble, and which were simply life happening just beyond your reach. Now shift your ears toward the upper floors of the insulae. Up there, the sounds change. Children stirring in their sleep. Someone talking softly in their dreams. A clay pot tipping over and shattering, followed by a sharp gasp. From somewhere close by, you hear laughter light, unburdened, maybe a joke whispered between siblings sharing a narrow bed. And below, in the taverns that never truly closed, the last few voices remain. Two men arguing half-heartedly over a game, the scrape of a stool, a drunken song that fades into a hum. Even the buildings make their own music. Beams creak under the strain of age and weight. Water drips steadily into a catch basin from an open pipe. The city is alive, its very bones shifting and groaning through the night. Now listen for the softest sound of all, the turning of a page. Somewhere, a scholar reads by lamplight, studying the stars or history or law. His world is small, quiet, and filled with thought. The lamp beside him hisses faintly as it burns, and outside his window, a bird stirs. All these sounds layer atop one another, not in chaos, but in harmony. Rome's night was not about silence, it was about balance. Each sound has its place. Each moment has its mood. And as you listen, deeply, patiently, you begin to feel something beautiful. You are part of it now. This night, with all its music, is holding you gently, rocking you like a cradle, wrapping you in memory and imagination. So allow yourself to drift a little further. Don't worry if the sounds blur together. Let them do that. That's how it's meant to be. You're not a visitor anymore. You are a dreamer in Rome. A quiet breath in the city's long, ancient night. Rest easy. Now, as the city lies in its quietest hour, you may be wondering, what about the mighty? What of the men and women who shape the fate of empires? Surely they rest too, don't they? Yes and no. Let's take a quiet detour now, not through the markets, not through alleyways or courtyards, but through the heart of Roman political power. Because even in the dead of night, the weight of empire does not sleep. Imagine yourself slipping through the tall columns of the Palatine Hill, not as a servant or visitor, but simply as an unseen observer. Behind tall doors and within lamp-lit rooms, Rome's most powerful figures are turning in their beds, or, just as often, sitting awake with brows furrowed and scrolls unrolled. Here, an old senator lies back against silk cushions, rereading a letter delivered by courier only hours ago. It's from a friend stationed in Britannia, or perhaps Syria, filled with coded language about local unrest. He sighs, thinking of the morning's meeting. What argument will he need to make in the Curia? Which allies will stand with him? Which will not? Not far away, a magistrate paces. He is young and ambitious, his sleep often disturbed by dreams not of monsters or ghosts, but of missed opportunities, failed alliances, and fleeting moments of glory that slip away just before dawn. And what of the emperor? That depends on the era. Augustus, they say, was fond of early nights and earlier mornings. Nero? Perhaps he's still awake, listening to music, composing verse by lamplight, or planning a public spectacle that blurs the line between art and ego. Domitian might be sharpening his paranoia in the dark, surrounded by silence, convinced of plots whispering behind every curtain. Even power cannot quiet the mind. In fact, it may amplify it, turning every creak of the floor into a threat, every hushed voice into suspicion. Yet here, too, the city's lullaby plays. The same soft wind that rocks children to sleep stirs the olive trees outside the palace. The same moonlight that spills across broken tiles in the slums glints faintly on the emperor's polished floors. Powerful or poor, all Romans sleep beneath the same stars. Now picture yourself walking quietly past these palatial quarters. You're not here to judge, just to observe. And what you see, what becomes so clear, is that greatness in all its forms still needs the softness of night. Even those who carry the burdens of a continent must close their eyes, must dream, must rest. Perhaps that's the true gift of night in Rome. It levels the field. It humbles the mighty and comforts the humble. As you walk away from the Palatine, back toward quieter neighborhoods, that thought stays with you. The idea that beneath the layers of class, title, and wealth, there is something shared, a need for peace, for safety, for the stillness of sleep. Let that feeling wrap around you now. Let it settle warmly in your thoughts, because you've walked far tonight, not just in distance, but in understanding. You've seen Rome not as a monument, but as a living, breathing presence, full of contradiction, full of warmth, full of life. And now, with the stars beginning to dim and the horizon hinting at gold once more, we approach the edge of our journey, but not quite yet. Let's linger just a little longer, where even the empire itself pauses just for a breath between dusk and dawn. Chapter 11. Creatures of the Roman Night. As the empire sleeps and dreamers drift deeper into the folds of twilight, we turn our attention to those who never feared the dark, in fact, those who thrived in it. Because Rome, like any great city, had its share of nocturnal residents, not just people, but animals too. Let's stroll again, softly, through the near-silent streets and imagine the quiet rustling of movement that isn't entirely human. A shadow darts past your feet. A cat slim, elegant, and entirely unbothered by your presence. Cats were valued in Rome not just as companions, but as protectors of the home. They kept vermin at bay, padded silently through the alleys, and often curled up near warm ovens or nestled inside stalls at the forum. Superstitious Romans believed cats carried luck or divine favor, particularly if they arrived unbidden. Further along, you hear the faint squeak and patter of rats or mice. Less welcome, but ever present, these tiny scavengers made the most of urban life. They knew the rhythms of the city, when trash was thrown, when bakers dropped crumbs, when market stalls were left unguarded. Entire small ecosystems lived in the cracks between Rome's stones, invisible by day, fully alive at night. Now glance upward. Bats, yes, even in ancient Rome flutter across the rooftops, feeding on insects drawn to the oil lamps, still glowing faintly in courtyards and atriums. Romans sometimes saw bats as omens, signs of ill fortune or mysterious change. But others, more practically, appreciated their silent work, keeping the skies above dinner tables free of buzzing pests. On the outskirts of the city, near the fields and aqueducts, you'd find foxes, small and clever. They scavenged what they could, often slipping into gardens and storehouses in the dead of night. Foxes had their own place in Roman mythology, symbols of cunning, sometimes mischief, always survival. And then, of course, there were dogs. You'd see them in every part of the city, some loyal pets curled at their master's feet, others wild or semi-wild, sleeping under carts, scrounging scraps, barking at unfamiliar shapes. Romans both loved and feared dogs. They trained them for protection, kept them as household guardians, and offered them to the gods in ritual sacrifice when the occasion called for something serious and sacred. In the silence of night, the animals of Rome carried on their own stories. They didn't write history. They didn't lead armies or build temples. But they lived it every day, every night, alongside the people, observing, waiting, enduring. You pass one now, a sleepy hound lying beside a doorway, his eyes half closed. He watches you pass without alarm. He knows you mean no harm. You're part of the city now, just as he is. Beyond the animal world, there were also other, less tangible creatures of the Roman night. Spirits, shades, whispers of old beliefs still clinging to corners where light dared not reach. Romans believed that spirits of the dead could walk at night, especially those who had died without proper burial or rites. These restless shades, known as lemures, might drift through the streets, unseen but felt, bringing chills, confusion, or unease. To ward them off, Romans performed the Lemuria festival each May, walking barefoot through homes at midnight, tossing black beans behind them while chanting protective words. They'd clang pots and call out loudly, scaring off spirits that might have followed them home. Even outside festival days, Romans were careful. Doors were marked with charms. Prayers were whispered before bed. Mirrors were sometimes covered. The line between the living and the dead was never far from anyone's mind. But don't be alarmed. These weren't malevolent ghosts in the way we often imagine them. They were more like echoes longing to be remembered, hoping for peace. Most nights they passed through without incident, drawn more to neglect or injustice than to anything else. So here you are, walking alongside cats, under the wings of bats, past dogs and rats and rustling foxes. Overhead, stars begin to dim just slightly. The sounds of birdsong begin early risers who sense the shift in light. It's almost morning, but the creatures of the night, they've done their work. They've fed, watched, listened, and waited. Now they retreat to shadows and nests and corners, giving space once more to the waking world. And you, still walking, still dreaming, carry with you their presence, a reminder that life in Rome never stopped, never slept completely, and always included more than just its human citizens. As we move forward, the night is nearly behind us. But before we return fully to the day, there's one more journey to take. Let's prepare to meet the morning not as a visitor, but as someone truly living in the rhythm of this ancient, eternal city. Just before dawn truly breaks, another kind of energy begins to stir across Rome. It is subtle at first, a faint rustle here, a cartwheel there, but soon it grows into something more rhythmic, more purposeful. It is the heartbeat of Rome's early morning, the markets. Even before the first clear rays of sunlight reach the cobblestones, Rome's marketplaces begin to form like tide pools, slowly filling with life. Let's follow that rhythm now. You're moving eastward, where the smell of olive oil and fresh herbs rides the morning breeze. Ahead of you, figures are assembling stalls by torchlight. Merchants, their hands rough and practiced, lift crates of produce and bundles of cloth. The air is brisk and cool, carrying the scent of damp wood and fresh figs. You pause at the edge of the Forum Boreum, Rome's oldest market, nestled beside the great curve of the Tiber River. This is where livestock was once sold in large numbers, and though the market has changed over time, it still retains a certain animal energy. Goats bleat softly from their pens. A donkey brays. Birds circle overhead, already looking for scraps. Vendors speak in hushed tones, negotiating with early customers, weighing goods on bronze scales, tying off bundles of garlic or herbs with twine. It's not loud, not yet. There's an almost sacred hush to the opening hour, as if all of Rome is collectively holding its breath. You notice the tools of the trade laid out carefully. Clay jugs of wine, woven baskets filled with lentils, cured meats wrapped in fig leaves, blocks of salt from the sea. A woman offers you a taste of her cheese, aged in olive brine and wrapped in waxed linen. It's sharp, pungent, utterly Roman. Children begin to appear, yawning but eager. Some carry baskets for their mothers. Others simply run between stalls, drawn by colorful fabrics, warm pastries, or the promise of mischief. You smile, remembering that morning chaos isn't unique to our age. It danced through Roman dawns too. As you stroll farther into the market, the goods begin to change. You pass a scribe setting up his station ink pots, quills, tiny wax tablets stacked beside him. For a few coins, he'll write a letter or read one aloud for those who cannot. A few steps later, a bronze smith sets down his heavy tools with a grunt, already sweating in the morning cool. The sun finally crests the rooftops now, golden and warm. Its light spills across the stone faces of temples and statues. Columns seem to stretch just a little taller. The shadows recede, and with the light comes volume. Voices rise. Criers call out deals. Merchants laugh or argue. The clatter of pans and pots begins in nearby taverns. Rome is waking not with a whisper, but with a full-throated declaration. Another day has begun, but before the crowd grows too thick, before the smell of grilled fish and dusty sandals takes over the air, you step back. Not because your unwelcome Rome would never deny a visitor to its marketplaces, but because you've seen what you needed to see. You've felt the city breathe. From the silent hours of deepest night to this bustling hum of early trade, Rome has revealed itself to you layer by layer. And it's here, in these first true moments of day, that you understand something even more profound. This isn't just a city of monuments and marble. It's not just history, preserved in ink and stone. It's a living rhythm, a heartbeat that never really stopped. A world made of torchlight and dreams, footsteps and whispers, markets and stars. And somehow, in some quiet way, you've become a part of it. So take this moment. Stand in the sun. Let it warm your face. Let your body remember the coolness of the night, the softness of sleep, the comfort of oil lamps and quiet prayers. You've walked through the night in ancient Rome, and dawn has found you. The sun now spills fully across Rome's rooftops, but not everyone is hurrying to market stalls or sweeping shop fronts. For many Romans, especially those of higher status, the morning begins in private, behind the doors of spacious villas or more modest townhouses. Let's step gently into one of these homes and observe how the first hours of the day unfold. You enter a domus, a single-family Roman home, through a heavy wooden door, creaking open into a dim atrium. The light, angled and gentle, glints off a shallow impluvium, the small central pool used to collect rainwater. The air here is still cool, touched faintly with the scent of incense and beeswax. In one corner, a servant moves silently, straightening a woven mat, adjusting the flame of a wall-mounted lamp. Morning in such a household is a choreography of routines. You can hear soft voices deeper within the home, family members greeting each other, giving orders for the day, or simply commenting on the weather. In the sleeping chamber, the lady of the house stirs. She sits up slowly, allowing her maids to help her into her tunic. Her hair, unbraided the night before, is now gently being woven into thick coils and pinned with bone or bronze. Another maid brings a polished mirror and a small pot of rose-scented oil. There's no rush. Mornings here are deliberate, quiet, even ceremonial. Breakfast is light bread dipped in olive oil, a few slices of fruit, maybe a dish of soft cheese. The paterfamilias, head of the household, sits near a window with a scroll in hand. His toga still lies folded over the arm of a chair. He'll dress more formally when he visits the forum or attends a patron. For now, he reads by morning light, absorbing the news, poetry, or legal commentary that begins each of his days. Children eat quickly, already impatient. Some will stay home with tutors, practicing recitations or arithmetic with wax tablets and pointed styli. Others might be led through the streets to a local school, where they'll join classmates seated on benches, surrounded by the dusty scent of parchment and chalk. Further down the social ladder, morning unfolds differently, but no less purposefully. In the home of a tradesman, perhaps a shoemaker or potter, the family rises early, not with leisure, but with necessity. The workspace must be prepared, tools laid out, orders remembered. The children may help or dash out the door to school if they're lucky enough to attend. A wife kneads dough, tending a fire and packing food for the day's labor. Water is fetched from the nearest fountain. The home smells of ash and clay and flour. These are not idle mornings, but practical ones. In the home of a freedwoman who runs her own small dye shop, her hands are already stained fingers tinted with murex or indigo. She hums softly as she prepares her pigments, listening to the voices rising from the street outside. A neighbor calls out. A vendor passes with a cart of figs. The city's energy has returned. Now move through the city again. You'll see 1,000 small moments like these. A girl brushing dust from a windowsill. A boy chasing pigeons in a courtyard. A merchant lighting a stick of incense at a tiny household shrine before opening his stall. All of them part of Rome's greater rhythm, each life humming along in quiet harmony with the others. From the grand domus to the modest workshop, the Roman morning is shaped by habit, necessity, tradition, and above all, connection. Every home, no matter how large or small, is a universe of its own, and yet each is stitched seamlessly into the broader tapestry of the city. So breathe deeply now. Let that warmth settle into your chest, the knowledge that life, ancient and ordinary, flows just as richly in small routines as in grand monuments. You've walked through a Roman night. You've watched the first bread baked, heard the first prayers whispered, felt the first sunlight spill over stone and tile. And you've stepped into homes where the day begins not with fanfare, but with simple grace. This is the Rome most never see, not in books or tours or lecture halls. But it's the Rome that lived, and still lives in you now. Let's keep walking gently into the deepening day. As the sun rises higher, casting golden stripes between columns and awnings, another kind of rhythm takes over the city, not one of silence or stillness, but of motion, duty, and quiet, essential labor. These are the hours when Rome depends not on senators or merchants, but on the people who make the city move, the servants, laborers, and slaves who begin their day long before their masters have finished their first cup of watered wine. Let us follow them now, not as outsiders, but with compassion, with eyes open to the quiet strength they carried. In a villa kitchen, a cook wipes sweat from his brow. The fire has been burning for hours already. Bread is being prepared for the household, sauces stirred, meat set to roast. Slaves bustle in and out of the kitchen, some young and focused, others older, moving slower but more confidently. The cook isn't just preparing a meal. He's managing a system, ensuring that everything will be ready at exactly the right moment. Elsewhere in the house, a cleaning girl is scrubbing mosaic tiles, a brass brush clutched tightly in hand. Her knees ache, and her tunic is damp with soapy water, but she hums softly under her breath a song from her childhood, maybe, or one she heard from the marketplace. Cleaning here is more than work, it's daily proof that everything runs as it should. That order will be kept. In wealthier homes, there are body slaves attending to their masters, laying out togas, fetching perfumes, helping with jewelry or shaving. These routines are intimate, constant, and quietly exhausting. The slave must be both present and invisible, quick but careful, familiar but never too familiar. Step outside the home now into the streets. Porters carry baskets of wine or produce. Couriers dart between buildings, relaying messages for merchants and politicians. Sanitation crews sweep debris from alleys and restock public latrines with water and cloth. Many of these workers are enslaved, some are free, but all of them are essential. And what of the public bathhouses? It's still early, but already the staff are preparing. Fires roar beneath giant bronze boilers, heating water that will later flow through the caldarium, tepidarium, and frigidarium. Attendants polish benches, stock oils, and prepare cloth towels. Bathing was as much about society as it was about hygiene, and nothing could go wrong. It was a daily spectacle, and someone had to make it perfect. As the crowds begin to gather in the city's heart, labor continues behind the curtain of civility. In the Subura, Rome's crowded, working-class neighborhood, craftsmen raise their shutters. Potters, blacksmiths, cobblers, and tailors begin the delicate dance of production and trade. They're not just surviving, they're thriving, innovating, working within their means to provide for families, expand shops, and find their own sense of pride. There's a young boy gathering kindling to sell by the bundle. A woman sorting herbs in small clay bowls. An elderly man tightening a rope around a wagon, preparing to travel to the countryside with goods to barter. None of these people appear in statues. Their names are not carved into triumphal arches, but they were Rome. They were its lungs, its hands, its feet. And in the stillness of your memory, as you walk now through these streets and workshops, you begin to understand that greatness is never built by a few alone. It's carried, day after day, by many. So let your steps move more slowly now. Let your eyes soften. Smile at the girl carrying bread. Nod to the man washing stones. Watch the street fill, person by person, until it pulses again with life. The sun is high now. The city is awake. But in your heart, you still carry the hush of Rome's night, the warmth of its kitchens, the rhythm of its unseen labor. Let it stay with you. As the city bustles and commerce hums, there remains a quieter, parallel layer to Roman life woven through gestures, shrines, and whispered devotion. Religion wasn't reserved for temples and festivals alone. It lived in kitchens and courtyards, in small rituals repeated every day, especially in the earliest hours, when sunlight was still soft and new. Let's explore that now. Step once more into a Roman domus. In the atrium, beside the impluvium or tucked into a household niche, you'll find a small shrine, a lararium. It's not grand. Just a tiny altar, a few carved figurines, perhaps painted images of the household gods. The lares, protectors of the family and the home. The penates, guardians of the pantry and provisions. Here, before the business of the day begins, the paterfamilias performs a ritual. He lights incense, offers a small cup of wine, perhaps leaves a portion of bread or fruit. He murmurs a prayer, sometimes formal, sometimes improvised, asking for protection, prosperity, good health, or simply thanks for the peace of another morning. These private rituals weren't dramatic, but they were essential. They stitched Roman life together with purpose, reminding people that the divine wasn't far off, it was right there, watching, waiting, guiding. Elsewhere in the city, other forms of worship unfold. In temples, acolytes sweep stone steps, tend sacred fires, ring bells to signal that offerings will soon begin. You might see a woman dressed in white approaching the temple of Vesta, carrying a small basket of flowers or grain. Perhaps she hopes for a child, or seeks healing, or simply comes to give thanks. Religion in Rome was not just ceremonial. It was deeply personal, practical, woven into everyday concerns. At the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill, more official rituals take place. Priests in elaborate garb, their heads veiled, chant hymns and make blood sacrifices, sometimes a dove, sometimes a bull. The smell of burning meat mingles with laurel smoke, curling upward in solemn spirals. Those attending don't cheer or weep. They simply observe. They are part of something ancient, enduring, sacred. But not all faith looked the same. By this point in Roman history, the empire had absorbed countless beliefs from conquered peoples and foreign lands. Egyptian cults flourished in certain quarters. You might pass a shrine to Isis, where devotees sing songs in unfamiliar tones, their prayers echoing with distant memory. Mithraic temples hidden, secretive welcomed initiates into underground chambers, full of flickering torchlight and cryptic symbols. And Christianity? Still young, still persecuted in many periods, but growing quietly. In private homes and hidden cellars, small gatherings of believers shared bread, scripture, and whispers of a new kind of salvation. They did so cautiously, yet with conviction. To them, these meetings were more powerful than any triumphal arch or marble deity. Walk the streets and you'll notice faith was everywhere. A soldier touches the amulet at his chest before marching off. A mother draws a protective circle in ash around her infant's cradle. A merchant tucks a charm into the folds of his tunic before opening shop. The gods were not distant. They were constant companions, invited into every decision, every hope, every fear. And whether you believed in the mighty Jupiter, the gentle Lares, the secret Mithras, or a crucified Savior worshipped in silence, you were not alone. That, perhaps, was the greatest comfort Roman mornings could offer. The knowledge that each person, no matter their station, was connected to something larger, something timeless. So now, let your thoughts drift through temples, courtyards, and quiet prayers. Feel the incense cling lightly to your skin. Hear the echo of chanting from high stone walls. Imagine the warm light of a household lamp flickering beside sacred figurines. Faith in Rome wasn't about spectacle. It was about presence. The gods, the ancestors, the spirits, they walked beside you, just as you now walk through this ancient city. Take that presence with you as we continue. There's more yet to see, but now you walk with blessing. With the morning well underway and the warmth of the sun settling comfortably on your shoulders, the time has come to journey to the very heart of the empire's daily rhythm. The Forum Romanum. This sprawling plaza wasn't just a marketplace. It was the pulsing center of politics, commerce, justice, and rumor, a place where every thread of Roman life was drawn together into a vivid, living tapestry. You begin your walk along the Via Sacra, Rome's sacred way. Stone pavers, worn smooth by thousands of footsteps, gleam faintly beneath your sandals. To your left, the Temple of Saturn looms, its tall columns catching the light just so. It is here that the state treasury is kept, beneath layers of stone and silence. To your right, you pass a statue of a long-dead consul, his face noble, his inscription faded, his posture forever triumphant. The Forum is beginning to swell with life. First come the magistrates and their attendants. Lictors' guards of office lead the way, their bundle of rods and axes fast as symbols of state authority. They part crowds with a look, clearing paths for their officials who follow in crisp white togas edged with purple. These men stride with purpose. Today there are decisions to be made, legal cases to hear, disputes to mediate, alliances to maintain. But even as they walk, they glance around, noting who's gathered, who's whispering to whom. In Rome, power was as much about perception as action. Next, the lawyers arrive sharp-tongued, scroll-laden, eager. They find their places near the rostra, the raised platform from which orators address the crowd. Arguments echo against the stone as they prepare their defenses and accusations. Here, in public view, guilt or innocence might depend as much on performance as on proof. Let yourself wander now through the crowd. You pass shopkeepers gesturing wildly as they haggle. A seller of tunics proclaims the softness of his cloth, while a spice merchant proudly uncorks a jar of cinnamon from far-off India. The scents waft around you: pepper, saffron, myrrh, olive oil, old coins, new ink. Rome was a city of smells as much as sound. In the shade of a portico, scribes sit at small tables with styluses ready. They offer to draft contracts, copy poems, or read letters aloud. Nearby, a slave waits with a wax tablet, shifting nervously on bare feet, hoping his master's message was correctly relayed. Children weave through the legs of adults, chasing each other or darting toward fruit vendors. Dogs sleep curled under benches, occasionally lifting their heads when a particularly loud voice disturbs their nap. And the conversations, oh, the conversations. Rome's Forum wasn't just a place for decisions. It was a place for drama. "Have you heard?" whispers a man in a woolen cloak. Lucius was seen leaving Senator Calvus's home at midnight. What business could they have? "Did you see that merchant's wagon? He's doubled his guards." Bandits in the countryside, they say. The new governor of Hispania is a fool. He couldn't manage a sheep pen, let alone a province. Rumors in Rome traveled faster than eagles. News was shared not by paper, but by voice, endlessly, breathlessly. If something important happened in the empire, it echoed through the Forum before the ink was even dry. Now make your way toward the Basilica Julia, a long, elegant hall used for business and legal matters. Inside, men in fine tunics speak in urgent tones, debating contracts, inheritance, debts. Each case is argued with intensity, and yet just beyond the next column, a pair of lovers steal a moment, hands brushing, eyes locked. Life never stops in the Forum. It only shifts. Further along, you find a group of philosophers gathered near the temple of Castor and Pollux. One, bearded and animated, recites Epicurean arguments on the nature of pleasure. Another responds with stoic defiance, arguing that virtue is the only true good. Around them, listeners nod, challenge, smile, or sigh, some engaged, some simply entertained. Even Rome's intellect was theatrical. But not all is peace and philosophy. In the corner near the Curia, where the Senate meets, a minor scuffle erupts. Two men shout over a property dispute. Their voices rise, fingers jab, and for a moment, tension crackles through the air. But a city guard steps in. No weapons are drawn. Rome knows how to skirt the edge of chaos and step back from it. And what of religion? At the Temple of Vesta, the sacred flame is tended still. Vestal virgins move silently, their white robes untouched by dust. Passers-by lower their voices in reverence. This flame must never go out, for as long as it burns, Rome endures. It's here you feel the deep core of the city, where the spiritual, political, commercial, and personal intertwine like vines on stone. The Forum isn't just a place to be. It's a place to become. As the day reaches its peak, shadows grow shorter, and the plaza shimmers with heat. More citizens pour in, some to speak, some to watch, many simply to be part of it all. And you, having walked through Rome's midnight streets and stood among its sacred shadows, now stand in the open light, fully a part of its living theater. You are no longer a silent observer. You are the citizen buying honeycomb in the sun. You are the poet nervously reading your lines. You are the slave hoping for freedom, the senator weighing alliances, the child chasing a marble, the priest making offerings, the traveler resting your feet beneath the columns of empire. You are Rome, and as you take one more long look around at the statues, the columns, the crowds, the conversations, you feel it settle deeply inside you. This city was not built in a day, but you in a single day have walked through its soul, and it's not done with you yet. As the sun moves toward its zenith and the city pulses with heat and activity, your feet carry you gently toward the river, the lifeblood of Rome. The Tiber is not quiet, not even in the late morning, but it has its own rhythm, different from the clamor of the Forum or the bustle of the markets. Its waters glisten under the daylight, shifting in endless patterns of blue, brown, and gold. Barges drift slowly past, laden with clay jars, timber, sacks of grain. The boatmen shout in rhythm, steering with long poles, their muscles tight with effort, their voices echoing off stone embankments. Step closer now. You're walking along the Ripa, the riverside path shaded by ancient plane trees. The air here is fresher, tinged with the scent of moss and cool water. Fishermen sit quietly on crates, lines cast, eyes half-lidded. A few dogs trail their owners, sniffing eagerly at baskets of fish. Children dangle their legs over the stone edge, tossing pebbles and laughing at the splashes. This isn't a place of ceremony or spectacle. It's the quiet hum of the city's belly, where work meets rest, where stories are told in quiet tones and goods change hands with little fanfare. You pass a tanner's workshop tucked into the side of a slope, the air around it sharp with the scent of cured hides and lye. Workers scrub leather in troughs, their hands rough, their faces splashed with droplets of murky water. Further down, women kneel at the water's edge, washing linen against smooth rocks, gossiping as they work. Their sleeves are rolled high, their laughter carrying softly across the surface of the river. And here just past the bend you find a small garden, nearly hidden behind a crumbling wall. Vines snake up a broken archway. Figs hang heavy from the trees. A single man sits on a worn bench, reading a scroll. He looks up as you pass, nods gently, then returns to his thoughts. Even in a city of stone and fire, nature still finds its place. The river allows it. The Tiber flows through Rome, not just as a source of commerce, but as a quiet refuge, a place for solitude, memory, and breath. Now look to the bridges. Pont Fabricio, Pont Cestius. Ancient arches spanning the river's curves, linking the main city with the Isola Tiberina, the small island nestled midstream. That island, long considered sacred, is home to temples of healing. You make your way across the bridge, stones warm beneath your sandals. The island greets you with cool breezes and birdsong. Healers move quietly between buildings, priests of Aesculapius, god of medicine. They speak gently to patients lying on shaded mats, offering water, herbs, prayers. Some have come with fever, others with wounds, still others with suffering of the mind or spirit. Here, healing is as much ritual as remedy. You sit under a tree and watch for a time. A girl with bandaged arms smiles as a priestess changes her wrappings. A mother wipes sweat from her child's forehead with a cloth dipped in rose water. No one hurries. Time moves slower here, as if even the river agrees to wait. Eventually, you rise and make your way back across the water, following a narrow trail that runs parallel to the docks. You pass laborers unloading amphory clay jars sealed with wax, their contents marked in careful script. Olive oil, wine, garum, honey. The smells blend into a heady perfume, earthy and sweet, sharp and rich. One dockhand grins and offers you a taste of fresh bread dipped in oil thick, golden and delicious. You nod your thanks and continue walking. The river carries with it not just goods and waste, but memories, lovers' footsteps, soldiers' final glances, traders' hopes, children's dreams. The Tiber remembers them all, and now it carries yours too. As you pause at the water's edge, you lean against a railing, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. The city, for all its motion, has allowed you this pause, this stillness, this moment of reflection. Rome is not only a place of noise and might, it is also a place of silence and water, of currents deep and slow, of voices whispered over rippling surfaces. You open your eyes. The sun has begun its slow descent. The shadows stretch longer. The colors of the buildings soften, and the Tiber flows on timeless, patient, eternal. Let's walk on slowly. We're not finished yet, but we've seen something precious, the soul of the city reflected in its river. And now, dear traveler, we return, not to the place we started, but to the feeling. The day in Rome has bloomed and matured. Its heartbeat has echoed through marble columns, dusty stalls, laughing children, whispered prayers, and the steady lull of the Tiber's flow. And now, as shadows stretch once more across the cobbled lanes and rooftops begin to glow in golden light, the city exhales. The light softens. So do the voices. This is the hour of hush. You make your way slowly from the riverside, retracing some of the steps you took so many hours ago, but everything feels different now. Not because the streets have changed, but because you have. You know this city better now. Its tempo, its textures, its truths. You pass the corner bakery again. The oven is cooler, the baker sitting outside now, wiping his hands on his apron, nodding sleepily at passers-by. The last loaves are wrapped in cloth, stacked neatly in baskets, ready for tomorrow's dawn. The market stalls have quieted too. A few merchants close shutters. Others sweep gently, muttering about what sold well, what didn't. Cats slink from under carts, eager to explore the empty spaces. Birds wheel lazily overhead, coasting on the dusk breeze. You find yourself once again near the Forum, but it feels almost like a dream now. The crowds are gone. The stones are warm from the sun, but growing cool under your feet. Statues stand in silence, not watching over power or glory anymore, but simply existing. Beautiful, weathered, patient. You pause before the temple of Vesta. The sacred flame still flickers gently, tended by quiet hands. And you think not of gods, not of rituals, but of warmth, of continuity, of how many nights this flame has seen, how many people have watched it and found comfort in its glow. Further along, you pass a narrow alley. A young couple stands close, whispering softly. Not lovers from a statue, not figures from legend, just two souls in a quiet moment, hearts lit by something no torch can match. You smile, keep walking, and soon you're back in the neighborhoods. The streets narrower, the buildings taller, the voices familiar now. In one home, a family gathers for supper. You hear the clink of bowls, the low hum of conversation, the occasional burst of laughter. In another, a child is being tucked into bed. A lullaby drifts through a window, soft, off-key, beautiful. The lamps are being lit again. Oil flames flicker behind shutters. Cloaks are hung, doors latched, sandals set neatly by thresholds. Rome does not sleep all at once. It slows. It dims. And in that dimming, it welcomes rest. You walk on, slower now. Your legs remember the miles they've traveled, but they do not ache. They feel used, satisfied, lived in. At last, you find a small bench in a quiet courtyard. You sit. The air is cool now, but not cold. The sky overhead shifts from peach to lavender, then to indigo. Stars blink to life, one by one. The moon rises familiar, soft, watching. And here, in the heart of an empire, surrounded by ancient stone and endless stories, you breathe. In and out. There is nothing more to see tonight, nothing more to prove. No battles to fight. No deals to make, just you, the silence, the stillness, the peace of knowing you walked with history and it walked gently with you. And so, let your eyes grow heavy. Let your thoughts float. You are safe. You are seen. You are exactly where you need to be. Sleep now under Roman stars, and dream of torchlit alleys, of temple songs, of cool fountains and warm bread, of laughter echoing through stone arches, of a city that never truly slept, but always knew how to let go. Good night, traveler. Rome will still be here when you wake.